can slap police on the hands in that way financially and get the message across, I think the easier it'll be for patients to grow without interference from law enforcement. Another victory I want to mention is the CHP case that we had since early 2005. In August of 2005, they changed their policy after we filed suit against them, and now we've noted an incredible decline in the number of negative interactions between CHP and patients, and they were the worst violator of the Compassionate Use Act, bar none. So we feel that that's a success, and there's more to do. We need to take that policy, which, just like maybe it was David Behrman who mentioned it, we couldn't have written it better ourselves. We need to take that policy to the rest of local law enforcement in California and around the country, quite frankly, and make sure that they abide by the rights of patients. Very quickly, I want to mention verification appears to be really not a challenge for patients, a challenge for law enforcement. They haven't quite figured out how to verify patient recommendations. And unfortunately, that has resulted in a lot of patients feeling the wrath of law enforcement by saying, you need an ID card or you're not valid, which is completely false. But we are working on making sure that either police are forced to verify recommendations, or that there's some easier method for them to be able to verify recommendations. And this is part of the CHP policy agreement that has just recently been signed and will get probably attorney's fees in the tens of thousands of dollars within 6 months. It says that CHP must honor patient recommendations. It's not acceptable just to say that patients need an ID card. Just very quickly, in the realm of patients' rights, so far the legislation that was passed in California talks about exemptions to criminal statutes and doesn't really go into detail a lot about patients' rights, which is something that I think in the authors of Prop 215 really wanted to cement, that it was not just a waiver to criminal prosecution, but there was actually a right of patients to be able to possess, cultivate, and use. So the one case in that arena that hopefully will break new ground is Ross versus Raging Wire Telecommunications. A patient was fired from his job, only there for a brief time, but because he tested positive, and there was a bad appellate court decision that said the employer had the right to fire this patient. And we're taking it to the state Supreme Court, California Supreme Court, and hopefully we'll prevail. We'll find out in the summer or the fall of this year about that. So I'm assuming that it's kind of short, but just know that there's a whole other arena out there, which is how to tackle the confrontation that patients have with the federal government. And we're working on that in a couple of different arenas, but one is the Data Quality Act, and the other one is the rescheduling petition. Both of those are critically important to changing the landscape in the country on medical marijuana, and I'll be at the booth after this presentation, so if you want to come by and talk to me about it, you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Kris. And now I'd like to introduce William Panzer. Bill Panzer has been practicing along the Bay Area for 19 years, specializing in cannabis defense. He is co-author of California's Prop 215, medical cannabis law, and has represented patients, growers, and medical cannabis dispensaries throughout California in state and federal court, at both the trial and appellate level. He has consulted with numerous local government entities in crafting medical cannabis dispensary regulations. He is also a musician whose band Stone Trout has played at numerous cannabis events, including the fundraiser that I had for Dr. Todd, or at least he played with Chris Conrad. Including last year's NORML conference. He has been a member of the NORML Legal Defense Committee for 19 years and is a former winner of the NORML Al Horn Award, as well as a High Times Magazine Freedom Fighter of the Month. Bill Panzer.
one of the toughest jobs at the normal conference is getting up on Friday morning to speak after being here yesterday and last night. The tougher job is those people that have to get up tomorrow morning and do it. I'm going to try and make this a little quick because I know we're running a little bit late and everybody's getting hungry, and I want to go to Tommy Chong too. I'm going to talk to you very briefly about, I think, steps that doctors and patients can work together to take to avoid becoming another one of these stories that we've been hearing about. And I'm going to talk from a very pragmatic standpoint. It's not that all the judges and the DAs and the cops all got together in one giant room and said, okay, what can we do over the next 10 years to inhibit this new law and plan this all out. It's very different. The reality is you've got a criminal justice system that for the better part of 60 years believed that all cannabis was the devil incarnate. And it was programmed that way, and it's an institution, and everything within the system went in that direction. And then in 1996, in November of 96, we passed Prop 215, and all of a sudden there's a 180-degree change. And some of them were a little bit slower than others. There's a lot of ignorance out there. Even defense lawyers. I'm constantly talking to defense lawyers that don't know what this law says and don't understand it, let alone prosecutors and DAs and judges. So we're dealing with that. They come from a place of skepticism. They start out thinking it's BS, but many of them, if properly educated and shown the facts, do have somewhat open minds and can be brought around. But how do you do it? Well, I deal all the time with patients that have problems with the criminal justice system. They're usually not calling me unless they've had a problem with the criminal justice system. And I've seen certain things repeat over and over again. I will tell you that at least 5 times a week, an average of at least once a day, I will get a call from a patient that's had some problem with a cop somewhere, and so I start getting the information. One of the first questions I'll ask them is, who is your recommending physician? And at least, I get more than one call like this a day, but at least once a day, the response will be, wait a minute, I got to go get my recommendation and look at it. Let me suggest to you that most people believe that if you have a legitimate doctor-patient relationship, at minimum, you know your doctor's name. All right? For most people, it would be like you tell me you're married. I go, that's wonderful. What's your wife's name? And you go, wait a minute, let me go get my marriage license. Okay? When the cop stops you and says, who's your doctor? If you can't come up with your doctor's name without glowing your piece of paper, that cop is already thinking you're full of crap. This is BS. All right? So, number one, know your doctor's name. All right? Now, I know that there are mills out there. Scott Imler, I believe, coined the phrase doc in the box.
Yeah.
There are places that you can go, and you all know this, and I know it, and the cops know it, and the DAs know it, and the judges know it. Places where you can go, and all you have to do is establish that you are suffering from $150 in the wallet itis, and you'll get your recommendation. There are places you can go. You can walk in and go, I've got, wait a minute, I wrote it down. McGranny headaches. That's it. My friend said to say I have McGranny headaches. He has $150, and you'll get your recommendation. And those doctors are making money. Of course, a lot of them aren't even doctors. A lot of them are using physician assistants, using nurses to give these recommendations out, which are questionably legal. Now, is a recommendation from a physician assistant working under a doctor legal or not? It hasn't really been decided. A court might say yes, a court might say no. But do you really want to be the defendant that's got to pay somebody like me thousands of dollars and go through that system for 2 years to find the answer to that question? Or make sure the person you're getting a recommendation from is really a doctor, and you don't have to worry about that. And can you imagine going to a physician, let's say for Vicodin, you have some kind of condition, walking in and saying, gee, doctor, I have this condition. I know that I need Vicodin for it. I don't have any records to prove that I have it. Don't bother doing any examination yourself. Just take my word for it.